Hi crafters! I am really proud of this project and I'm so excited to share it with you. I have worked up a pattern for a beaded spa mask that uses a 10mm bead, whether it's glass or stone or lava rock. I'm going to show you a couple of samples that the only thing I recommend is not like a plastic or a imitation pearl or something. They're just not heavy enough, but these work up so nice and they feel absolutely luxurious. They just rest on your eyes, and the little round, because I'm using a round bead, that just creates nice little pressure points that feel wonderful. You can chill these and put it on, and that helps with like migraines, with puffy eyes, or if you just want soothing relaxation, you can warm it up with some warm water. Be careful not to get too hot, and then just rest that across your eyes. So it works up really nicely. You can make this with the 10mm beads, and then you can choose to either go with a 4mm crystal accent or a 3mm. So the 3mm will keep it tighter and a little smaller. 4mm will make it a little bit larger. They both work. They both feel wonderful. And I also, with the pattern, have the option of adding a little attachment area, so you can add some silk or satin ribbon, and that looks really beautiful. You don't need the ribbon though, because really ultimately you're going to lay down and put this across your eyes, and you wouldn't walk around with this on. Even with an open weave like this, you can't really see through it. So you definitely want to just lay down and relax. So you really don't need this, but I'm going to show you how to put it on if you like that accent. I have another sample here I've done up in a mixed stone bead that came up just beautifully. And these stones are actually a little cooler just naturally. They always feel a little cooler than the glass. Or this other sample I have here, which was done with a lava rock and a black crystal. And that worked up beautifully. And this and the glass feel about the same weight-wise and temperature-wise. All of them can be heated or cooled. So they work just beautifully. You can do any combination with a 10mm round bead and with either a 3 or 4mm bead. Those two sizes work. As soon as you start to branch into smaller 2mm accent beads or 5mm, it just distorts the shape too much. So I recommend that you stay within those parameters. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I have in front of us all the materials you'll need to make one of these masks, and you'll need the pattern, of course. So I have 10mm glass beads, and I'm going to do a green, which I can't wait to see how this looks finished. I'm going to actually use the 3mm. These are just a little round crystal, 3mm. I have Fireline. I'm using a 6-pound Fireline. Fireline works great. Wildfire works great. The 6-pound is also the 0.006, so depending on what brand you're looking at. But make sure you're using one of these really good solid beading lines, because you want some strength and integrity in that mask. I'm using 5 yards of this, and I'm not cutting this up. I'm actually going to work it, and it's a little overwhelming to start with 5 yards and have to bring that through. But I don't know if I'm just lazy, I don't want to have to cut it off and tie it off in the middle and start again. I like to just weave it all in one. So that's what I'm doing. You can choose to do it differently, but that's what I'm going to do here. So I've got my 5 yards of Fireline, has some scissors just to cut that off. I have a beading needle here. I'm using the Big Eye beading needle. A number 12 works great as well. I have a little bit of satin ribbon, so that on this one will show you how to add the accent ribbon onto it. And I have 2 gold little, these are a 10mm by 2mm bent metal tube bead. And then to attach the satin, I just used a liquid stitch. You could sew it, you could use a glue. So it's your choice how you want to just, bend that ribbon through, and you could tie it off if you wanted to. So there's lots of options there. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I've got my 5 yards of Fireline on my needle, and I'm going to work my mask right here on my bead mat. And my pattern that I've written, it has written instructions and 3 separate diagrams, and literally goes step by step. It numbers every bead. So if you're not a beader, if you've never tried this before, if you just take your time and follow step by step, you will get through the pattern, and I know that you can make this. It's actually not that difficult. If you're an experienced beader, you'll see that pattern happening and you'll be able to work across a little more quickly. But even if you're stepping through line by line, you're only going to take probably 2 to 3 hours maybe on your first one, and then they get faster after that. So it doesn't take that long to work this up. So I'm going to work mine as if I'm looking down at my beaded mask. It's going to look just like it is on my diagram. So I'm going to follow it, and I'm going to follow my numbered sequence. So I'm going to start by getting some beads here on my string. And because I'm working on this big eye needle, I don't have enough room to put them all on, but I can just pull it through. That's fine. And let's see, 3, that's 6. We need 2 more here. Okay, so we're putting 4, we're alternating a large bead and a small bead. Whoops. On my needle. And we're going to come around and make that, turn that into a little circle. So I'm going to bring all that line through. And as I get to my end, I'm going to leave a tail here of about 12 to 18 inches. Leave a nice tail. Not so long that you won't have enough on the finish, but 18 inches, you're very safe to leave that amount. That will give you some finishing line, and it will also give you, if you want to add the accent satin ribbon, it'll give you plenty of line to do that. So go ahead and leave that tail, and this is your bead number 1. When I run this line back through, I'm going to go through the first 5 beads again and put myself in a position to add the next group of beads. When I do that, what I really want to show you here is that I now have that tail. This is bead number 1, and my tail's coming out of the bottom of it and going off to the side. I'm going to just leave it there out of my way. Now you can tighten this up, but since you just have it open here, you're not going to tie this off yet. It can loosen up, that's fine. Just keep tightening it down if you need to. But as you work your beads, try and keep them tight as you go work towards the right. So once you've got your first little round on and you have your tail in place, then you can go ahead and just follow the directions and bead across your whole top first row.
Like a bird on a tree, I'm just sitting here. I got time, it's clear to see. From up here, the world seems small. We can sit together. It's so beautiful, you and me. We meant to be.
Okay, so after you've successfully finished your first row going across, you're going to come back the other way. Then we're going to work on those lower pieces. Okay, so you can see that I've gone all the way down and then I came all the way back, followed that pattern, and now I'm going to go ahead and just work these lower portions. And I'll go ahead and work them off camera so you don't have to watch every little bit, but I am going to show you a little detail when it gets to working across the bottom edge. Okay, now you'll notice while you're working that pattern that there is a very specific route that I have woven through these beads, and there's a couple of little disconnects. If you follow the pattern specifically, you will connect anything that's disconnected as we weave around here. You'll come right up out of this bead, and you just need to finish this side by adding one more crystal and connecting to our center point bead. bringing that line through, and you'll be in the perfect position to have your line coming out of the center bead ready for your right side lower portion. So we'll go ahead and finish this up, and I'll be back and I'll show you the finished work. Well, here we are, and hopefully you went and got that pattern and made one of these yourself, and you're at a point where you've got just the last little bit here, a little bit of tie off, and you'll see how easy it is. Now, one of the things you may have noticed as you're working that second half, very much like the first lower half, once you're finished, there's a couple little disconnects here, but if you feed your line exactly the way I've told you through the pattern, you're going to make sure and tighten up that whole edge. So this has been strategic. I've made sure that you've actually gone through your whole pattern, and then you've come around the bottom edge and sort of reinforced it, and then you've come around this lower edge and also reinforced it. So we're going to reinforce our corners now as we do our little tie off. Now, you don't have to add this next little piece. This is optional, but I do have these two 10 millimeter by 2 millimeter metal tubes that are arced, and I'm going to put these on as a little place to attach a little silk or satin ribbon. So we're going to go ahead and do that in this one. If you did not want to add these, then you would simply take your lines, reinforce your corners a little bit, and perhaps go along the top and reinforce that as you tie it off. And then I would come back on the other side and do the same thing. I might come through the corner a little bit just to reinforce it, and then work through these top row here as I tie off. I'm going to do that, but I'm going to actually add these first, and then I'll finish up and do that. So what I have found is these little bent tubes can be really hard on your needles. I had to really bend a needle to get them through, so I've just decided that hand feeding them is much easier. And I am going to put my line back on the needle, work it through, but I am going to bring it through a second time. It'll be a little loose at that point, and I can still feed it through again, and then I'll tighten up again, and then I'll tie off. So I'm just going to run it through twice, and same on the other side. Now again, I personally look at these as more decorative than useful. So I really personally don't think that I'll be adding them to the masks that I create. It's just a nice, pretty accent to have the ribbon. So it's really quite optional. So as you can see, I've gone ahead and fed my little tubes on here. This one's going to come from this top button down, and it's going to come into the top of this bead. It's going to come from the top here and feed right through the top of this one, or bottom of this bead, top of that bead. This one's the opposite. My line is coming out of the top of this bead, and so it's going to come up and into the bottom of this bead. So let's go ahead and do one of these sides so you can see what I am talking about. By the way, you can see that I still have quite a bit of line here. So this is because I used the 3 millimeter beads. I had a little more line. If you use the 4 millimeter, you're going to use up a little bit more, but you'll still have plenty left over for finishing, and maybe even more than you need. Feel free to take a little off. If you feel like you want to, you might want to again make your first one before you start cutting things off, and then gonna get a feel for it first. So I'm gonna go ahead, I've got my bead coming out of the bottom of the top of this bead here, and I'm gonna come into the bottom. Oh, I love that nice and tight, a little hard to get in there. There we go. And then I'm gonna go ahead and feed it through that bead as well. Because what I'm going to do is, now I've got that attached, I'm going to go ahead and just come through this top here, these beads, through these two, and come around and down so that I can come back and feed it one more time through here, and then trying to trace that again. And I'm not going to go through a third time, but I'll start tying off. we get back, we're going to work right back up to that tube bead again. As we do, I'm going to have to, I'm just going to come up right at the base of it, and I'm going to have to take that line off the needle because I'm not going to ruin my nice big eye needle. But I did find that with just once through, it was still loose enough that I could feed this through a second time. Not quite as easy as the first time, but it worked. You can see that just kind of popped right out of there for me. If it's too hard for you to grab, maybe get some tweezers or something, but I'm able to grab it just fine. Now I did get these, I found them in gold and silver and an antique bronze. To be honest, the ribbon that I'm using is a 5/8 inch ribbon, and it just completely covers it. So it doesn't quite matter what color. I went gold because I wanted to attach gold ribbon to this, but it's really going to be hidden, so I don't know how much it really matters. Okay, feed back up through those beads again. Bring that nice and firm. And then you could go through another time if you want. I think I'm going to go ahead and just show you how to tie this off. So my preferred method is to make 3 knots in different places while bringing line up through more beads. So what I'm going to do here is just bring my line underneath and hook that, make a little knot, make sure it's just coming up and staying right in where you want it, spaced right in between 2 beads. Make sure you don't cross over a bead and then leave line hanging out. Make a nice firm little knot there, and then go ahead and bring your line through a few more beads. And this, again, it's that perfect opportunity to just go across the top and reinforce the top a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, even though I just gone through one more since I'm almost to the center, I'll go ahead and tie that off one more time, making sure my string stays right where I want it to. There we go. I'm going to bring it through here. And I wasn't planning on a 4th knot, but I'm noticing there's just a little looseness in here that I don't like. So I'm actually going to turn the corner here and just go ahead and tie another knot. So you can do that. You've got all this spare line. Whatever you think is necessary is fine, but 3 is plenty. At least 3 though. Any more than that is just up to you. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that corner where I felt like it was just a little loose in here and just pop a knot right under here. I'm going to go through one more because again I want that knot to be right before a large bead. And the reason I want a knot right before the large bead is then usually when you kind of pull it on it, it kind of goes into the hole for the bead. And the little ones are clear, so I just don't want anything to show. So I'm going to go ahead and just pop that through, run it through a couple of these small guys, and just get those scissors back out and just clip it. Okay, so I did a 4th knot, ran it through a little bit more, and now we're just gonna cut that line. And then I will just repeat that process on the other side, and then I'm just going to show you how I attach that ribbon. Okay, I've pushed my bead mat back because I wanted to just show you. I glued one side just so you could see it finished, and I'm going to go ahead and glue this other side with this ribbon. I'm using liquid stitch, but don't do this on top of your pretty bead mat. Do it on a work surface or on something else, but don't do it on top of your bead mat. So basically I've got my right side of my ribbon here, and I'm just going to feed it through, and it is kind of a tiny space, so it did, you know, it wasn't the easiest, but I got it to feed through. Whoops. Just get a corner of it, and there you go. And then I brought it, you know, sort of wrong side up, and I just made sure that that fold over is going to be good. You can see that it's going to cover that little tube completely. So, got it here in place, and what I'm going to do is just grab a little of this liquid stitch. Now, I just had this laying around. I don't even know how old it is, but this is working. It dried it really nice and very solid on the finish. E6000 might work on this, and a variety of other glues, or you might choose to sew it, or even make a little tie here, but I just don't think on the ribbon that the tie would be very pretty, maybe with a different type. When I pulled it through, I got a little bit of a fray here. I'm just going to trim that off, just to make a nice clean edge. I'm going to go ahead and drop down some of this liquid stitch. So I'm putting a little on here because I'm going to take this and just fold it over. Just sort of clean up that edge. If I can get this one to fold, there we go. Just going to fold it and hold it. Give it a second. This is not a super fast drying. You might have something that dries a little faster, but that's got a good hold there. Then I'm going to go ahead and just add a little more. There we go. Add some more, and then just bring your ribbon over if you need to or want to bring it closer to that, you know, closer up to here so there's not as much of a fold over. You could do that. Bring it up a little bit. Bring that ribbon over the top and just fold it over. Match up your edges good. Whoops. There we go. And just press that for a minute and hold. And then I'm going to let that dry overnight with this particular glue. So I don't know that I would say I recommend this one. I just wanted to go with something I had around the house. But, you know, you might find something that you like a little better than this one. But this one works. I have the finished pink and silver satin ribbon right here. And that finished it just fine. And I can pick it up and hold it. It's very, very firm. So that worked. Anyhow, that's it. I hope that you love this project. I am so thrilled with it, and I can't wait to give these out as gifts. I may have a few of my samples up for sale on my shop on the website, so if you don't want to make the pattern, you can buy one. And if not, that pattern is up and available, and I hope that you love it. I really do, because I'm so excited about it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you back here soon.